Hey, everybody. Today I have for you podcast number 33. Today's podcast is titled Reaping and Sowing. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. I am Dr. Pete Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network podcast, where we flesh out all of your limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you deserve. And this is going to be a fantastic podcast today, I can tell you already, because I'm pretty excited about it. But I want to first take a moment and thank each and every one of our listeners out there. Still getting some really great feedback. I love hearing the comments that you guys tell me personally, message me. It's just, they're really inspiring. But, it's all about trying to make a positive impact and being a positive influence and trying to, help everybody to live a better life, more meaningful life. And so you can help us do that by obviously sharing this content with friends and family. Hit the subscribe button. That helps too. I know in the realm of this whole internet world that we live in today. And again, if you really want to, go a step further, you can leave us a positive review. That's super helpful as well in driving the algorithm to get this in front of more people. So anyway, on with the show. I'd like to... I had this title. I was thinking, what am I going to talk about tonight? And I got to talk about reaping and sowing, because that's kind of the theme that I walked away from this past trip. I am just coming back from Bend, Oregon. Our entire family traveled out west to Bend, Oregon or it's called Oregon. Oregon. You got to pronounce it Oregon. That's what the locals say. Not Oregon. So my oldest son, Nate, got married to Samantha, his new wife, who is absolutely lovely. We adore her. Couldn't ask for a better wife for our son. So super, super, super excited about their wedding. But along the way, the entire weekend, I had just a lot of great experiences that I can boil down into this title of reaping and sowing, or sowing and reaping. We could reverse it, because you do sow before you reap. But let me just tell you how it all started. It started with a trip out there, and we thought we had really good airfare figured out as far as the flights to get there. And flying from Syracuse, New York, we flew to Denver, Colorado, and then we had another flight from Denver into Redmond, which is the closest airport to Bend. So that was our plan, was to go leave Syracuse at about 4 p.m., and we're going to arrive in Bend at about 9 p.m. at night. There's a 3-hour time difference. So it was all great until we got to Denver, and our flight was delayed. And, it was like 40 minutes, but that 40 minutes multiplied by 10 and turned out to be 4 hours. So, or not 4, it would be 400 minutes. But anyway, it turned out to be 4 hours, not by 10. Sorry. So that was a little inconvenient because, we ended up getting in, that's like getting in at 1 a.m. there, which is like 4 a.m. to what we were used to with the time change. And by the time we got, we're up for 24 hours, pretty much, close to that. So anyway, that being said, we just rallied the next day, got up and just started operating and going out and, doing things and meeting people and getting into the wedding mode, right? And we got to, see some sights. We got to do a couple activities, did some hiking, checked out the river, checked out some different things. But Bend, Oregon is absolutely beautiful. Looks like the place was just built like 5-10 years ago. It's an expanding city, and it's a lot of recreation. If you like the outdoors, it's an absolutely beautiful part of the country. beautiful mountains, mountain biking, hiking, fishing, hunting, you name it, it's going on there. Skiing, snowboarding. Like if you drove 20 minutes up the mountain from where we were staying, they had all kinds of snow up there, like humongous snowbanks. It was incredible. So the wedding was absolutely beautiful. I've had never met Samantha's parents before, other than virtually on the computer. And they are absolutely wonderful people. It's no doubt that they produce such an awesome daughter. And so really, really excited about extending our family out west. So really, what I mean by that is, they're now family to us because of the marriage. So really excited. So anyway, 5 takeaways from this weekend that I will describe to you. So point number 1, or takeaway number 1, is keep your inconveniences in perspective. So, there's an old saying, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. But this is really sometimes easier to say than to do, or oftentimes you may even catch yourself making a mountain out of a molehill because we can't keep it in perspective. So here it is. We flew across the United States. We flew from New York State to the West Coast to Oregon. And, we did it, however many hours it took, but definitely under 1 day of travel, right? If you thought about that trip, a couple hundred years ago by a covered wagon, well, it's a little different story. You weren't going to do it in a day. You weren't going to do it in a week. And it was going to take you the better part of at least a year to probably make it that far. And along the way, you were going to meet many, many more hardships than we met, which was, being laid over in an airport that had basically every kind of restaurant and store that you could think of. It looked like a shopping mall, not to mention it had a beautiful view of the Rocky Mountains. So if you've ever been to Denver's airport, there's one section of it where you can look off to the west and just see the snow-covered Rockies. And it's like, wow, this is not a bad airport to be stuck at. So yeah, that was my point with that, is that, when we have challenges in our life, oftentimes that's what we like to draw attention to. We like to give it more energy and make it more dramatic. I don't know why we do that, if it's because we just want to be heard or we like to share our stories. But for some reason, our human nature is to give more attention and energy to the negative things that happen. And I don't know if we're doing it for sympathy or if we do it just because we want to be noticed or what, but it's a tendency that people have. Like, here's an example. You go to a really good restaurant and you may tell 2 or 3, maybe 4 people. But if you go to a restaurant and you have like horrible, horrible experience, you tell everybody. And whenever somebody brings up that restaurant, you'll be sure to share that negative experience with them. Versus if, you go to a restaurant and you have like one good meal and it was good, maybe even better than your expectations, you may not tell anybody because you just had a good meal that met your expectations or maybe even exceeded them a little bit. But you're not going to go tell as many people as the time that you have the bad experience. And likewise, if we have a smooth trip, we just say, yeah, trip was good. But if we have to be delayed for 4 hours, boy, we are going to go into every detail and we are going to describe what a hardship it was and how tired we were. And so we start to give it more legs than it deserves. Why do we do that? I'm not 100% sure, but I know it doesn't really make your life that much better. So I would avoid that trap and try to just recognize if you're ever doing that. Instead, focus on giving more energy to the things that you're going to see more of in your life. Okay? So that's first takeaway. The second takeaway is a really cool one because it has to do with an element of our health. And here's the takeaway. The faster you can acclimate, the faster you can enjoy. My wife and I did this years ago when we went to Italy. We flew from Toronto, New York Toronto, Canada to Rome, Italy. And after that flight, with the time change and everything, To us, it was really, really time to go to bed, and we were exhausted. But it was morning in Rome when we got there, so we didn't go to bed. Instead, we just got up and did the entire day. We just did the entire day and acclimated as quickly as possible. We viewed everything that we could possibly see in the daylight hours of Rome, and we got the most out of our time there. But by the next day, after sleeping really good that evening when it got dark, we felt really like close to being on par with the time change. So the sooner that we can get ourselves into that rhythm, the sooner you can start to enjoy life. And this is actually called it's a function of our health, or a hallmark of health. In other words, the sooner someone can adapt, the faster that we can adapt and acclimate to something, it's actually a sign that you are actually healthier when you can do that. When people struggle to adapt or can't adapt at all, that's when they begin to get sick or even perish altogether. The quicker you can adapt to a cold climate, the quicker you can adapt to or a warm climate, the faster that your body can turn over and do the appropriate responses, the healthier. It's a sign that you're actually a healthier individual. When you struggle with those adaptations, it's a sign that you're a bit weaker. So, yeah, that was a takeaway, that we really had adapted well, and now we got back yesterday, and worked a full day in the office, and I feel really good today. So good to go. We're adapted back. We've acclimated back to the time that we left. All right, so that's takeaway number 2. Takeaway number 3. This is it goes back to an old saying as well. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And so not having ever met Samantha's parents, I didn't know what to expect. We just spoke with them, through like a Zoom call. So we saw them virtually, but we had never actually spoke with them physically and spent any time with them. And as you know, that speaking to somebody virtually is nothing like speaking to somebody face to face, and sharing a meal with them, breaking bread with them, seeing how they interact, and the whole communication thing. And I got to say, it's not a surprise that Samantha is as lovely as she is, because her parents are just awesome people. But not just her parents, but her brother, her grandfather, her grandmother. I mean, all of her relatives were the like. They were wonderful people. Her aunt, I spoke with her. I mean, so all of these other people in her life have poured into her, and she is a reflection of all of them. And it was great to see. It was just, and so now we start to think, how does that influence me, right? So you are, and I am. We are all a product of the people that raised us, the people that were surrounded us, the people that contributed and poured into our lives. So, and that's why some people really can struggle in life too, is because, maybe they didn't have a lot of positive things poured into them. Maybe they had a lot of really challenging things that were poured into them, and things that they had to really try to overcome, which is not always bad either. I mean, here's another topic for discussion too, is that stress and difficulty is oftentimes the thing that makes you better. It's what causes you to grow and to become a better version of yourself, having overcome something. And without stress, then oftentimes we don't get the opportunity to flourish and expand and grow. There's a concept called hormesis, which is that a certain amount of stress will actually promote more growth. And the example would be lifting weights. If you put your muscles under enough load, the hormetic response is to hypertrophy or to strengthen the muscle tissue. And so if you without that stress, you don't ever grow. But at the same time, if you put in good ingredients into something, well, the outcome is going to be that much better. So that gets into the whole topic of sowing, putting in quality ingredients and reaping a quality product on the other end. And that's kind of how I view my son's new wife, is that she is just a quality individual as a human being, because of the quality ingredients or the people that have poured into her life. So super, super grateful for that. So, and then that brings me to number 4, which is the environment impacts the outcome. So kind of dovetailing off of point number 3, the environment, and I'm speaking really now more to what I noticed in Bend, Oregon. I saw very, very few people that were not in really good health. It seemed like every adult that I saw was, if not at an ideal body weight, they were very close to an ideal body weight. And they were all very vibrant looking, very active and agile looking, because the environment there kind of dictates that. In order to live at 4,000 feet altitude, to be there, it's a wealthier community. So if you're going to live there, you've got to have at least some level of income to be there. Not that you have to be rich, but you definitely, the cost of living's higher there. And you're going to choose that area probably out of choice, because most of these people have moved to there. There aren't a lot of people that were originally from Bend, Oregon. So they're there because they like the activities. They like the skiing. They like the mountain biking, the golfing, the whitewater, sports and fishing and cycling and you name it. All the activities out there kind of preclude being in better physical condition. So our environment can dictate the outcome. So, for instance, in big cities without a lot to do, maybe you're going to see an increase in sedentary lives, and without the activity levels or the time. Like a lot of these people have more time, and they're more dedicated to their fitness, and they put more emphasis on it. So they choose to live in an area where they can do more things that are physical in nature. So if you live in a place where you can't seem to get outside, or you don't have a lot of activities to do, then you're going to potentially have a lot less health in your life. But also the quality of food there was really good too. So it was environment can impact the outcome. So, and you think about that with sowing and reaping. We're coming into the springtime. We're getting ready to plant the garden. And I know that the soil that you plant in, the environment that you're growing in, will dictate the outcome of the crop as well. So that's point number 4, or takeaway 4. And takeaway number 5, I got to tell you just a couple of quick stories here. There was a woman that was working at the wedding at the bar, and I was getting a couple of beverages for some people. And when I went up there, she asked me if I was the father of the groom, and I said yes, I was. And she said, I've been to a lot of weddings, and I got to tell you that I've never seen your children like your children. I've never seen children like your children that enjoy each other so much, and they just seem to really love each other. And I was like, wow, are you bucking for a big tip here? And she said, no, I'm earnestly, I was hoping I'd get the opportunity to tell you that, because it really stuck out to me. So that was story number 1. Story number 2, we went to church on Easter Sunday with a couple that invited us, who actually married our son to his wife. And we went to their church and sat in the second row. They sat in the front row, so they didn't give us the best seats. Just saying. No, they were really good seats. But after the service was over, off to the left, this woman walked straight up to me. I didn't know who she was. Never met her before in my life. And she said to me, I've got to congratulate you as a parent. And I'm like, oh, well, why is that? And she said, I've never seen 2 young men, young teenage, looking, or young men, she said, worship with such conviction and such passion and such reverence for the Lord. And she said, you and your wife, let your wife know too, that you too have done a terrific job as parents. So, I'm not telling you any of these stories to brag. A little bit I am, but it was really, point number 5 is confirmation and acknowledgement is a delicious fruit. And when it comes to reaping and sowing, what both of these women saw, they saw all of the effort that my wife and I have poured into raising our kids. And, they saw the effect. They saw the fruit. They realized that fruit was good. And, they admired it. Right. And if you've ever seen a delicious looking, like a piece of fruit that looks really delicious, you admire it. And it makes you want to know more about it. And the only way to do that is to pick it up and to sample it. And the way these people did that was that they saw them in action, but they also, made the effort of reaching out and acknowledging us. And I got to tell you, we all appreciate acknowledgement. It's something I think we all crave inside. And it's confirmation of years and years of work and effort and dedication and love to raising a family. So, for all you parents out there and grandparents, sometimes it feels like you're working your butt off and it's not amounting to much. And sometimes you don't even know if there ever is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. But I want to say to you all, stand firm, hang in there. It's going to be great as long as you continue to keep pouring into your family, and in the end, down the road, you're gonna reap the reward. So, reaping and sowing. That was today's podcast. So that's all we have for this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. Tune in each and every week to stay connected, be inspired, and keep moving toward your best life by stripping away your limitations. We'll see you next week. Thanks.